there, and welcome to this very special interview edition. My name is Mark O'Brien. I'm here with today on behalf of BodySlam.net. I'm joined today by the TNA World Heavyweight Champion Moose. Moose, thank you very much for joining us today. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. Can you see me still?
See you perfectly. You hear you loud and clear. Absolutely brilliant.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Listen, you're obviously TNA has gone through a thorough rebrand of late over the last year, pivoting from Impact Wrestling, new management in charge, and they put you as the focal front as being their new world heavyweight champion. How's that been for you? Having that prestigious honor as well as being the person, the face of the company, driving the company forward here in 2024.
It feels good. Um, especially rebranding the TNA and me being the first, me and Alex being the two guys, the main event, the first rebrand TNA show, and then pulling the trigger on me carrying the world title. It is a very special moment, a moment I won't remember, and shows a lot on how the company look at me as being the face of the company as for the moment, and to carry the company to new heights.
Yeah, no, it's been amazing. And I thought that the fact that it was yourself and Alex in that main event, as something like a TNA stalwart like Alex, but also then you, somebody who calls himself Mr. TNA, but also you were the first person to reintroduce the name TNA back into circulation when you reintroduced the TNA World Heavyweight Championship back in 2020, when that name had been like persona non grata, had been defunct for a number of years. And so I thought that for a number of fans, that was a really cool moment. When you were obviously part of the kind of storyline back in 2020 and whatnot, do you think it would come around to this full circle moment whereby you kind of wished into reality, whereby you're the TNA World Heavyweight Champion again?
No, I mean, that happened so long ago that
Yeah,
you're really not thinking
yeah,
that this is going to be a thing 2 years after that storyline.
yeah.
I'm one of those guys that when they show me what I'm doing for when they show me what I'm doing for the next few weeks to a month, I just try my best to be the best version of myself in whatever storyline I'm in. But you never think ahead to 2, 3 years
Yeah,
from.
yeah,
So it was a big um, full circle when I heard the news that we were rebranding back to TNA, and I was going to be in the main event for the World Championship.
no, it's been an amazing run so far, even just the back in Rebellion, your match with Nick Nemeth. Before I kind of launch into the kind of the modern TNA and looking forward ahead, for a number of our fans, particularly those over here in Ireland, might necessarily have a full understanding of your professional career prior to joining wrestling. For those unaware, obviously you've had an extensive NFL career. Would you be able to bring up some of our fans up to date, I suppose, and kind of your career with the Falcons, Pats, and Rams, etc. Just who may not understand your distinguished career thus far.
Yeah, I feel like football trained me and got me ready for the path I'm in right now, which is pro wrestling. It
Mm.
taught me discipline. It taught me humbleness. It taught me just gave me motivation, and gave me all the little tools that I use with my pro wrestling career.
No, like, completely it comes across thoroughly. That kind of high performance environment translates across perfectly into whereas in the wrestling sphere. I suppose when you did dive into the kind of wrestling world off the back of that, then when you kind of started it with Dragon Gate, with GFW, with Ring of Honor, New Japan, it was really when TNA started. When you joined with TNA, the world took notice because at the time it appeared that you might have been going to WWE, but you landed with TNA, and you're really put into a really serious position at that point. From the outset, you're paired up with the likes of Bobby Lashley, Drew Galloway, Cody Rhodes, Mike Bennett. What was that first year or two like with TNA for somebody with such relative inexperience as such in the wrestling sphere?
Oh man, that first year was a learning period. I mean,
Yeah,
when I signed to TNA, I was only maybe 3, possibly 4 years into wrestling, so not long ago.
yeah.
So every opportunity I had, I was a sponge, just learning from the guys older than myself. Guys like Eddie Edwards, which is like my brother, one of my best friends in the wrestling business. Um, Guys like Bobby Lashley, which he mentored me. I don't even know if he knows this, but he definitely was a guy I looked up to when I came into TNA to know what being a
Mm.
professional is all about. So happy to see that he's still doing great, which is much expected in WWE. But I got a chance to learn from guys like Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, Eric Young, Bobby Lashley, EC3, some of the older veterans that was in the roster when I made my debut to TNA. So me being the sponge I am being a quick learner that I am, I end up taking a little bit of from all those guys, and that's who I am.
Yeah, no, like, listen, it really stood out. Like even like your matches with like the likes of Naomichi, Marufuji, the opportunities you had at that such an early stage are incredible. But you also got to do some pretty cool creative things when you're working with Bobby Lashley in particular. You got to be involved in the storyline with the guys over at ATT, and you got to interact with the likes of Dan Lambert, Stephen Bonner. What was that kind of? What was that like? Interacting on screen in an entertainment avenue as such with real life kind of professional athletes again, and that bringing that crossover appeal to TNA audience. And given that you've come from a high performance sporting background yourself.
Yeah, that was big. The biggest thing that I learned from that whole angle was just learning from Bobby, man. Like one thing that stood out for me with Bobby is his facial intensity when he's in the ring. Like he's a nice guy, but as soon as he steps in that ring, he his face just goes to this killer. And that's something I didn't have prior to that. And I remember in the ring with him, I was like, oh my God, Bobby looks like he was gonna murder me right now. I need to pick this up from him. Like I need to pick up. That was a learning process for me, just to see how he turns, how he changes his facials from being backstage to being in the ring, and that's one big thing that I took from Bobby, and just that whole experience from working with Dan, which is a good buddy of mine. Shout out to Dan Lambert with American Top Team, and just to learn the outside entertainment of pro wrestling, not just the in ring stuff that we do. It was a huge learning process, and since then I've done a lot more entertaining stuff like my match that I had with EC3 that was mostly outside of the ring and all cinematic and all that. So it's definitely given me a different skill that I possess that is bigger than wrestling. Then maybe, hopefully, one day, who knows? Maybe I could go into the acting world.
Yeah, the exposure you've got within TNA through avenues such as that, you mentioned like kind of hardcore type matches you've been exposed to, the various different partnerships you had, like Rosemary at one point as well. So like it's been a huge, I suppose, spread of different areas you've interacted with as part of your time there. There's something we touched on earlier, which is around when you reintroduced the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Um, that was kind of part of your, as a fan, it felt like part of your odyssey as towards building towards becoming the TNA or Impact World Champion at the time. And they seem to get closer and closer. What did it feel like to you back in 2021 when you beat Josh Alexander to become the world champion? And it was part of the call your shot process back then. What did that feel like in terms of you're only in business less than 10 years? You've been with TNA for about 5 years. What did that mean to you personally to achieve something, particularly at that kind of strange time during COVID?
It was definitely. I believe we were out of COVID
Yeah.
then, because that was in Vegas.
So sorry, I meant just in terms of how the world was that stage as well.
It meant a lot, man, because I remember talking to a good friend of mine, a mentor of mine, Scott Demore, and his big thing was because I've always been fighting to be a world champion, and he always tell me, "You're not ready yet. You're not ready yet. You're not ready yet." So I remember when I got the call that I was going to be winning the world title at I believe it was Bound for Glory, our biggest show of the year in Vegas. And we had a conversation. He was like, "Well, remember I told you wasn't ready. Now I think you're more than ready to carry this belt, to carry this company." And it meant a lot, man, because it shows that my work ethic and my work throughout those years that he was telling me I wasn't ready. It showed that I worked my ass off and to a position to a position where I'm mature enough and professional enough to carry the company in bigger heights.
Yeah. No, it was an amazing moment, and like particularly, kind of seeing again as your odyssey from coming from TNA is thrown into the deep end with the likes, as I say, like Bobby Lashley, EC3, Mike Bennett, and all them, to kind of building your way of gradually being exposed to more and more environments to the point where you're almost undeniable. They had to become TNA champion at that stage, and your odyssey's kind of continued to grow ever since then. You touched on Scott Demore there. Obviously, over the last year, Scott Demore, following the launch of TNA, said as unfortunately parted ways with the company. What was that like for you personally when Scott had to step away from the company?
Obviously, you never want to see a good friend of yours lose his job, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those things that we know how pro wrestling is a revolving door. It's never goodbye. It's always see you later. So
Yeah,
in my 8 years in TNA, I've seen people leave and come back. So
yeah,
there's always a chance he might come back. But as for me in TNA, I'm still loyal to the brand. I'm still loyal to the locker room, and I have a lot of respect for Anthony and Ariel, who's running things, who's actually one of my good friends also. I understand where it's coming from a business aspect. And plus it's kind of like the NFL. It's like I was in
mm,
the NFL for so many years and you see head coaches get fired, right? And you just have to trust that whoever's coming in has a good mindset of where he wants the company to be, and you just
yeah,
have to trust him and play ball. I mean, and
yeah.
that aspect is the exact same thing as football. So that's what the message I try to relate to the locker room that hey, we have a new head coach now. We have to trust them. They see the best for all of us, and we have to do our part to make TNA keep going. TNA wasn't built on just one guy.
Yeah.
It was built on a collective of people, people that you have heard and people you never heard of before.
Mm.
That in the office that don't show their face on screen. So just because Scott, a good friend of mine, a mentor, is gone, that doesn't mean TNA is going to die because as great as Scott was, it just wasn't built on him. It was built on hundreds of people, you know. So like a machine, like you take one piece out, you replace it with another piece, and you just
Yeah.
keep trucking.
Yeah, no, I mean, like the momentum TNA has had over the last year hasn't stopped down at all. If anything, it's continued to build, even not necessarily because Scott's gone, but just the resources, the attention TNA is getting with people coming back. So there's Matt Hardy now involved with yourself, Nick Nemeth of your match with him just off of Rebellion. What's it like? What was it been like to for you to kind of interact with these people who've come off from say WWE or AEW contracts, coming back into TNA, bringing fresh pair of eyes? What was it like to you on a personal basis for your match with Nick at Rebellion as such, and then with Matt of late?
It's always great when you get a guy with a huge name value
Mm.
as Nick Nemeth coming to your company, right?
Yeah.
Because it brings more eyes to the product. A lot of his fans that were big diehard Dolph Ziggler fans are
Yeah.
now big diehard Nick Nemeth fans, and
Yeah.
those fans to watch him perform, you have to tune into our show. So that's always a big plus for our company when we get guys like him coming in and hopefully we get some more guys coming in because there was just some more releases from WWE. So hopefully those guys pick TNA to come to, and I'll welcome them in just like I did Nick. As long as they don't attack me from behind, then we're all good. But yeah,
No, that's amazing. And like, listen, again, like that kind of welcoming atmosphere is very apparent in TNA. Nobody has kind of bad words to say. People who work there, people who attend the shows, everybody seems to be having an incredible time at the minute. Um,
yeah,
uh,
it's one of those things with a big family. I know it's a cliche thing that most wrestling companies say, but you don't understand it until you actually come in with TNA and realize, man, this is a huge family. Everybody actually care for everybody here. So, and that's how we've been. That's how it's been since I've been here for 8 years, and that's how we're going to continue to be.
that's all you can ask for in any walk of life or any kind of day to day job as such. Um, and just and obviously you're kind of leading the company going forward now. Just on a personal note, like what are your own personal ambitions over the coming years now? Like you're one of the you're the locker room leader now. You're a veteran within the locker room. You've come from numerous high performing environments as TNA World Heavyweight Champion and beyond. What are your own personal goals going forward? Like every January, people do speculate if you're going to pop up in the Royal Rumble representing TNA as Jordan Grace and others that have. Do you have any goals such as that personally you want to achieve over the coming years?
I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously being in the Royal Rumble is just being in WWE television is something I dreamed of as a kid. But as of right now, I'm loyal to TNA. I'm
Yeah,
signed with TNA. I'm happy with TNA. But who knows? Jordan got the call to be in the Rumble. Who knows? Maybe next year I'll get the call. Or maybe somebody else in our locker room could get the call, and it's all praise to them or whoever that person is. Once the thing about our locker room, once somebody in our locker room achieves something so big as the entering the Royal Rumble, it makes us all proud because we are TNA, you know.
yeah. Something really cool that I'm obviously based over in Ireland. I saw you tweeting out last week. You're looking to kind of travel back over this way, looking to kind of get booked with OTT again. You're
Yeah.
unfortunately you're supposed to come over with RCW a couple of months back. Obviously, that just for whatever reason that fell through. Do you have any opponents in mind for potentially coming over here to Ireland to face anybody from OTT or any other, I suppose, promotions over in the UK either? Do you have anybody on your watch list?
Oh yeah, man. There's a couple of guys that I have in mind in wrestling, and I mean, and I know Joe is hearing this. I think he's the main guy, the
Yeah.
booker at OTT. He already reached out to him. We talked, but we're trying to finalize some things, just not with him, but with a whole bunch of other people, other promoters in UK to have me come in July because that month is my free month outside of Slammiversary with TNA. I have a bunch of open dates. So yeah, if we could make it work, I'll be happy to come down to the UK. It's been a while since I've worked at Indies in UK. I want to say it's been 6 years, maybe 5 years. But to answer your question, guys that I would love to work with, upcoming names. I can't think of the guy's name, but he had a spectacular match with Will Ospreay. I can't think of his name.
Omari, Scotty Davis, Mike Loku.
Yeah, Mike Oku. He's a guy that I would like to lock horns with. Another guy, man, like the
Mine like
Grease.
Doris, yeah, Doris, yeah.
That's a good talent that I would like to lock on horns with. But yeah, I mean, UK has a lot of tremendous talent. So whoever I get the pleasure of working with, I'm sure it's going to be fun, and hopefully it happens. But I mean, as of right now, July is open, and Gary Ward in the
Yep.
UK is helping me set things up. So as of right now, we're looking at July, and hopefully nothing falls through. Last time it fell through because I had just won the champion, and
Yeah.
I had to do my media tours, and it came around the time where I was going to be in the UK. So obviously, I had to cancel those because TNA takes precedence. But July's wide open. Gary Ward is setting some dates up. I think he already has like 3 or 4 set up, or maybe 4 or 5 setups, and we're just looking for a few more to make it a go.
Amazing. Gary Ward's a really good guy, and Joe Cabray is somebody I annoy regularly. So hopefully he's listening to this, and I'll have you over as soon as possible, over in July.
Yeah.
Listen, for TNA as a brand is growing exponentially in this part of the world. Again, when I in my teens, TNA was as big in the UK and Ireland as WWE back in the 2000 and that period 2007 to about 2012. It was absolutely massive. It was on Challenge TV. UK TNA were doing regular UK tours. You've obviously come back to do the UK tour last year. For TNA UK fans, you can catch it on DAZN and various different channels over in the UK now. What message do you have to fans in this part of the world to kind of drive interest in the product?
TNA, I said this before, I said it again, and I'm not being biased, it's just the pure truth. We are one of the best wrestling companies out there. We've proved it with our pay-per-views, especially our last 2. And all you have to do is watch one episode and you'll be hooked.
No, listen, I've been hooked since I was about 14 years old. So I fully agree with that sentiment. There's nothing I can argue with in that. Moose, you've been incredibly generous with your time today. I really do appreciate it. You're absolutely smashing it as World Heavyweight Champion and everything you're doing. I'm really looking forward to seeing you over in these shores in the coming months. Thank you very much again.
All right, thanks for having me, Mark.
No problem. Listen, have a great evening.
All right, you too, sir.
Okay, all the best.